Have you ever wondered what it would be like to own your own restaurant, maybe even be your own boss? Well, restaurants come in all different shapes and sizes. For example, food trucks. Now, restaurant system has been evolving, impacting, and expanding our world, which I'll talk about shortly. How many of you guys have ever eaten at a food truck and loved it? Well, if you answered yes, then you've been impacted by the food truck industry. Today, I will talk about the prevalence and effects that food trucks have on restaurant economics nationally, and how COVID 19 has impacted food trucks, and how food trucks have a great impact on families. First, I will talk about the effects that food trucks have had nationally on restaurant economies. So, there are several food trucks in the country, obviously. And in February 2018, the article WYSO states that Entrepreneur Magazine said that the food industry has tripled from 960 million to 2.7 billion over the last 5 years. Now, food trucks are everywhere in Miami Valley, and now some of the most successful mobile eateries are spawning spin-offs and transitioning into traditional restaurants, stated by WYSO. According to a 2012 forecast by Intuit Inc., the food truck industry projected to account for 2.7 billion in food revenue by 2017, making it a substantial player in the food service industry, stated by Jessica Huey, published in 2015. So now that we have talked about the effects that the food truck has nationally, let's talk about how the current pandemic, COVID-19, has had an impact. So as we all know, COVID has affected so many different businesses, not even just food industries. The food industries have closed. I mean, some have slightly been more successful, but for the most part, restaurants have been taken down by COVID. So let's see how food trucks are striving during these times. So what are they doing during COVID? Well, this quote: "When businesses were ordered to close and social distancing requirements went into effect amid the COVID-19 pandemic, restaurants were among the hardest hit. But not all food service businesses were affected equally. Food trucks, or mobile food services, by their very nature, have more flexibility to continue to operate," said by the article published on September 2nd by Andrew Haight. The article also gives a statistic by saying in 2018, these businesses employed by 16,210 workers and reported annual payroll of $320.6 million. So obviously we figured that food trucks would do better than most, like, not mobile restaurants, so a normal restaurant would do during the pandemic, because they have a lot more flexibility. They can transition their hours easier. They have less workers in general to deal with. So now that we know how COVID has impacted food trucks, let's talk about how they've impacted different families. Most families do not have the opportunity to drive to restaurants or do not have the funds to order food. This is how food trucks impact them. So food trucks are an easier way for families to feed themselves because they're easy to find, easy to get to, and they're mobile. So Feeding America had an article published by Eileen Bradshaw, which said that the Community Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma operates 2 food trucks throughout the year, providing fresh, healthy meals to neighborhoods facing hunger. In the summer months, children become the priority, and the food bank sends its trucks to low-income communities that have a large population of young children. The article also gives us a statistic saying 62% of Oklahoma children receive free or reduced cost breakfast or lunch while in school. So throughout my speech, I've been talking about the different impacts on economics, restaurant economics. I talked about how COVID impacted the economics, or just food truck industry in general, and I talked about how food trucks have impacted families. That's why I chose to discuss it today. I've always had a nice interest in it. I used to do this huge semester project my last year in high school. So thank you for listening. So next time you guys eat at your local restaurant, you will know the impacts on the economy and different families that it's had.